Okay, in this third video for modeling a character, we're going to finalize the facial features. We're going to adjust the smoothing groups, then we're going to add the skin detail for the body, and that'll wrap up the modeling, and then on the next video we'll move into UV method for texturing. So the previous videos we blocked out the body forms, and we also blocked out the fingers and then the feet, and we also started to smooth out some of the lines, which is still can be done in this video. So we have a pretty good start to the model. Sometimes when you start to get very detailed models, especially with the zoom modifier on there, the camera might move around a little weirdly, especially when you get closer to some objects. But it just takes a little bit of getting used to. You can use the Z key to zoom in if you get lost, if you don't have anything selected and you're weirdly positioned with the camera, just hit Z and that should do a pretty decent job. Excuse me about that. Moving the camera around back to the location. So we're still in symmetry modifying. What we're going to do is I'm just going to start blocking out the facial features. And this character does have a little bit different facial features than what humans do. It doesn't have an actual nose that protrudes out, but it does have a mouth. It does have eyes and eyebrows. It has these kind of appendages that come out like ears or a little antenna or something like that. Okay, so we're started blocking out with the previous videos where the mouth is going to be, and then where the eyebrow line is going to be. So we're going to add another loop in here for the actual eyes, but we're actually going to use this loop, and that loop is going to be the eyebrow. We're going to need another loop to kind of break out where the nose is going to be. So let's just add maybe one or two more loops, and maybe where the center of the nose is going to be. We have to use these to grab the eyes out and just the eyebrows. Maybe we'll use one of these side ones back here for the ears or side antennas, and then we can definitely use the top section for the top antenna. We do actually have a lot of loops up here since we did create a couple more loops down the body, and that's okay. What we can do is try to go in here. Be careful using the relax tool with the center line because it may start to break things apart or make things pointed like that. So just be careful when you have that center line selected. But what you can do is, I've got all these selected, but deselect that center line. See how that will adjust the head shape here. And it still does create some pointed shapes. Some areas just might need to be manually adjusted. So like this vertex doesn't need to be that close, and then we can start spacing out some other areas a little more. You can move that one back. You can even come back here. Maybe we actually do want this one to be rather close. They're not too bad for that center brow line. This vertex can be out more for where the brow line is going to be. That one can be back. Maybe even this one is out a little more. So it is a good idea to round things off as you go. I've mentioned that in some previous videos as well. So this would be the neck. This actually, well, he's going to have a big kind of meaty, muscly kind of neck, so we don't want it too pushed in. Let's just start moving some things around. Go back. Not that much. Really can go back here a little more. So then some of these can definitely be moved around, rotate them around a little bit. So that all these aren't so close. Maybe that one's up here some. The more you block things out as you go, the less it'll have issues. I'm trying to clean up and round things off later. This is maybe up near the head, these don't need to be that close. Maybe the neck might need to have a little closer. We can start to space some things out a little more. It'll help with rounding of the head. The head's still rather weird looking right now. That one's pretty good, but this one's kind of in, so I'm just going to select this loop. See my loop. The back of the head's starting to look pretty good. The side's still pretty blocky. Front, still some work needs to be done, but it's not too bad. The main thing with facial features in the head is that you can't just rush these things. The face is very particular for it to look natural, so we do need to spend some time on it. Eventually you'll start to get some pretty round forms. I do kind of want this big jaw line, so we'll come back and make adjustments there. Okay, so let's start with the eyes. The eyes are pretty easy to do here. So what I'm going to do is select 4 sections where I want that eye to be. Here's the brow line, and then here's going to be base of the nose or something like that. So a good way to start is actually just inset to get what would be the eyelid shape. Pull that over and back some. Same thing as we did with the arms and the legs, and the fingers and toes, is we want to start with a round form. We can make adjustments to that. So here's something to think about is that do you want to go ahead and model in kind of an expression. So the top eyelid is kind of flat, the bottom is more curved, which that might just be his expression or point of view at the time. So you can model it this way, but understand that for deformation it may or may not deform how you want to. So we're just going to model it already on there, facial expression, at least starting to. It's going to be much more round on the bottom than it is on the top. Too crazy. And even flatten these out even more. We don't want to go too weird right now. But okay, so let's move these loops back. This outer edge would be back here. Okay, so that's at least a good start. So now what we can do is start to create the eyelids. So maybe it's even rolled back. So this will be the outermost part where his back kind of wrapped around what would be the eyeball. Rotate that. So let's use extrude. So I can extrude this out. We're not doing crazy extrudes like this. It doesn't look natural, but we're doing this keeping the same shape but now creating the eyelid. What would be wrapped around the eyeball. So maybe one more time, not too crazy here. Let's see if we can see the front view. It's kind of hard to see. Just a little bit. Not too bad. I think that'll work. Okay, so what we're going to do next is maybe even the top lid is more than the bottom lid. So I'm going to pull this out. A little more. So we have more top lid. We'll come back and adjust it later. Okay, so let's extrude this in for the eyeball. So let's turn off the show end result button so we can see the symmetry or not. We'll turn that off so I can see the inside. So what I'm going to do is extrude this now in for where the eye socket will be. So let's do extrude, but let's pull it the opposite way. We don't want to go all the way back just yet because we want to kind of follow the contour of what will be the eyeball. And then we get the eyeball in here and then work on shaping this a little more. So let's scale this out, maybe even go in here and make adjustments to get it breaks through right now. Now that we're inside, then we can go make this a little more round. Let's start. Okay, so let's rotate this back just a little. Alright, let's extrude this again. And we're going to scale this out a little bit more for the middle part of the eyeball socket area, something like that. And then let's extrude it back in. The main reason we're doing this instead of just creating a hole for the back of the eye is that in case the eye or the camera does get close and angled, it looks like there is a surface back there instead of just the back of the head. So that should be good. We shouldn't worry about too much more than that. Okay, so now let's go back through. Let's click grow a couple times, and then we might actually move things a little closer so that the eyes are more natural. You know, we want to have the same distance on the outside from the corners of the eye to the in between the eyes as well. So we have to go back and make adjustments so they're not overlapping a little bit. We do have, actually, yes, it is a little bit kind of hard to see there. These vertices. Just go to the wireframe. Use this one. There we go. It was actually just too close. So that it doesn't clip on the outside. Maybe now I can come back. This doesn't need to be too far out. it can be like depressed the opposite way. Or the eye. Zoom down a little more. So we were modeling with a pretty detailed expression right now, which is fine. There we go. Okay, so this is a good start. So now it's a good time to get an eyeball in there. So eyeballs can be done with a basic sphere. But the issue with the sphere is that there's poles. So there's triangles. It's not too bad to start off with this. You can even start with a box and quadrisphere that box. We choose a cube, and then we can quadrisphere this. Go to edit poly. I'm not going to do this way for this. I'll show you the opposite way. Let's do M smooth a couple times because that's a sphere, but then it's kind of hard when I'm texturing to be able to see where the front of it is. So what might be easier is just to take the sphere and adjust this, which isn't too bad. There's no way I need 32 segments modeling for game design here, so let's drop this down something even lower, like 12. We just want a round shape because if it's really small, we're not going to be able to see that. We can go ahead and scale this down even more. And we'll rotate it forward so I can be able to see when texturing where that iris pupil area is going to be. But I want to get rid of polygons I don't need. So let's convert this to a poly. And I really don't need these back polygons because I'll never see those. To get it in the model, I'll show you. Let's go ahead and name this eye 1 and come back and say left eye, right eye later. Let's get rid of the triangles in the front. So first off, let's go to edge mode and select all these. I know I control and delete that. So let's create quads from this. As long as I have even sides, which I did, which was 12, I should be good to go here. So let's create a quad down there. Let's create one horizontally, create a cross, and I just need one horizontally on the top there. And there. So that's quads all the way around. But then that kind of makes it a flat shape. Not looking too good there. So let's select these. Let's maybe even add a loop. Maybe we need 2. And then now I can scale this down a lot more. And really start to get that round shape back to it. Too crazy. Pull this one back a little more. Good. So getting that round shape back. Okay, so now we can take this eye. Place it in there. What we're going to do is be able to adjust the eye lid shape according to what the sphere will look like. So let's go to the body. Let's turn off the symmetry. Good. This is going to pop it back in. Let's just place the eyeball in there. It's a little large. But always scale the eyeball a little larger than what you might think the eye should be. Center of the eye. Let's try to match the center of the eye to where my corners of my eye lid are going to be. So something like that, especially towards them. So I'll show you where we need to go back and make adjustments. Maybe this side's in, maybe that side is pulled out some more. That should be pretty good there. Stop moving things around. Okay, so now let's go into vertex mode. Let's move some things around. This might be a good time to turn on soft selection, so I can adjust some of the polygons around it without too crazy adjustments. Pull that out. Oops, X by accident. Okay, let's move this up. So slowly we'll be able to get a shape that actually fits the eyeball, so the eye's moving to look more natural. These can go back, they don't need to be back or pushed out. Maybe I'll turn off soft selection, just make some fine-tuning adjustments before we move on to other facial features. Good. Maybe these shapes can be down here a little more. Help with that roundness. looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's move that eye back over to the other side. There's a couple ways we can do this. We can take this shape, just drag it over, and try to eyeball it. Not too bad. Or what I can do is use the pivot point for my object, my character, which is the center, and then mirror this object over. So what I'm going to do is go to Effect Pivot Only. I'm going to use Alt-A, which is the Quick Align tool, and let's just click on the body. So what it's going to do is align this pivot point to the pivot point of the body. So make sure X, Y, and Z is turned on, pivot for both current and target object, and click OK. That just moves the pivot to the center. Now let's turn off Effect Pivot Only, and let's use the Mirror tool. I want to mirror this over, so I can see it in action here closer. Let's use Mirror, and I do want to copy, and this time I want to do an instance because this allows me any sub-objects that are copied. When I get to UV map and other steps, I only have to UV map in texture 1 instead of doing it several times. Let's do instance. That should mirror it over exactly the same spot that the other eye was. That might be a good idea to go to Effect Pivot Only, and then do Center to Object to move it back to the sphere. But now I know those eyes are the exact same position on both sides. I really get a good point of view of kind of what the eye is going to look like. Maybe this character will have purple eyes, maybe not. Okay, so let's move on to other facial features. Let's go down to the mouth and the nose, which are going to be a little bit more difficult. So here's where I'm going to create triangles and then create quads from that. So this does take some time. So I'm actually just going to let the video play faster, and then you can watch, and we'll come back and I will review my steps of how to create the mouth loop. So I'll just go ahead and do one first. Let's go to the Cut tool. Basically, here's the center of the mouth. I want to create where the outside areas of the mouth are going to be. So what I need to do is create a loop first around the mouth, which will create triangles, hexagons, eventually. But then I'm going to adjust that. So basically, I want to have loops around the mouth. I want to have loops around the eyes, which I can go ahead and add the end of the loop around the eye to kind of soften this area. Then I need loops from the forehead down to the chin underneath the mouth, and then I'll need loops from underneath the chin all the way to the top of the head above the forehead. So there's going to be different loops, and I'll come back and show you the major sections for kind of playing this out for motion. So we're going to go ahead and speed the video up, finish the mouth shapes, and kind of rough out the rest of the loops for the front of the face. Then we'll come back, we'll do the nose, and then the extrusions for his ears, and then his top shape up there. So we're going to go ahead and speed this up. Okay, so alright, so what we're going to do is add the nose now, as well as add the other appendages of the ears, and then some tail at the top of it. So it just really takes some time, and what we have to do is break, as far as reviewing how to set up the mouth shapes and whatnot. We have to break the quad connection. There's still some triangles, but overall it's still a pretty good job breaking the triangles into triangles and then creating quads from that. So we want to create loops around the forehead all the way down to the chin. We also want some loops from the forehead down to the mouth and down to underneath the mouth. So we have loops around the mouth that should all be quads. Sometimes just takes creating triangles and then breaking them back into quads. We want loops from the nose area underneath the mouth as well. So it does take some time. This is one basic route, and it's not necessarily the cleanest way to do it, but we do want to try to stick with quads all the way around, and then fanning out some of these loops around the back of the head so they're not so scrunched up, so maybe moving some down here a little bit. So there's still a lot of cleanup that can be done, a lot of space and things that we want to try to have as even amount of loops as possible. But in doing this, you might actually mess up another area that isn't as quite as clean. So we do want to kind of still fan some of these out a little more. Try to clean up the head a little bit. This area still right here is a little boxy. So I try to smooth off some of these areas. Maybe some of these are fanned out a little more. So that things aren't so scrunched in areas. Some of these will need to be pulled out, and then as well as back. That one needs to go out. So there's still, a lot of cleanup that can be done. But overall, this is at least a good start with the head. Maybe even this one needs to go up some. So the top of the head isn't as scrunched or whatnot. Probably need another loop up here. Soften this area just a little more. Like that. This can go a little more. But overall, this is a good setup. We also extruded the mouth in the same way we did the eyes. What I had to do was delete the polygons on the inside so that they're not, this is a full symmetrical form, there's not an inside polygon there, but you should be able to see that. Then add a couple more loops, but the main idea is so that we can come back in with the Swift Loop tool and add more loops around the mouth. We can add more loops around the eyes or the forehead. It just takes some time, so you can review this video and review the steps. This isn't necessarily the best way. Cleanest, most way to create the quads all the way around. There's still some cleanup areas, some odd areas right here. But overall, it's a pretty good startup. So what we're going to do is take a look at the nose area and try to break apart the nostrils. So this is just a small area. So maybe what we'll do is actually take these areas right here, maybe move them up a little bit, and use that as my nostrils. And I'm going to do the same way that I did before. Let's do inset, like for the eyes. Let's inset them in, and whereas a human nose will go out, this one's going to kind of go in. Maybe like a snout for a dog or something like that. We're going to extrude those in some, and we'll soften this edge loop a little bit more as well later. But at least for a start, scale this in some, not too crazy. Maybe the first time isn't going to be as drastic. Let's kind of do it again, let's extrude that, and scale that, which is really insetting in general as well. So that way we get a nice little socket rolling. Maybe it's more on the top side than the bottom side. We do that one more time. Maybe it's once again more on the top than the bottom. It's at least a good start for the nostril. Okay, so for the ears, maybe we're going to pick some, maybe these four on the side here. Let's go up a couple. That could be okay. We might even be able to go to these four back here. Yeah, let's do those four. Okay, so let's do inset once again, and then let's first off, before we start extruding, just kind of move these around so that you get a kind of a better rounded shape we've talked about before. That's too much. Rotate this a little. Okay, so this needs to be a lot smaller. But then now what we can do is same process, extrude. We can even use bevel. Bevel's kind of a nice tool. We can bevel it in. We just don't want to go too crazy because it will start to get scrunched up like that. And let's try to make more of a circular shape. Let's go to the local coordinate system. Get the right rotate here. Go back to local. Scale that in. We just want to make sure we're not getting too skewed here. Maybe we're coming back. Make sure we have a relatively circular shape. And this will be reflected on the other side as well. So same thing we'll do on both. Let's do extrude again. Oh, extrude the opposite way, that's okay. So this will have some movement to that, so let's just scale this in. Come back and add some more loops as we get to that point. Just keep extruding it in, that's okay. So maybe this is the bold part at the end. Kind of hard to see exact dimensions of everything. So it has crazy shape. Not too bad. Okay, so let's see if we can finish off that bold shape now. Let's actually do a positive one. Do some scaling. Maybe this time it isn't as crazy. Something like that. And then let's start to round that off now. Wait, one more time. Really small. Move it in. So the shape of it can definitely be adjusted. Let's go in and add a couple more loops here. Around that. Let's add another couple of loops here. Doesn't really gonna need to bend too much, maybe just one time in the middle. So that's pretty good. Smaller ones on the side. Now let's do the one on the very top. This is gonna go back to the same idea that we talked about earlier. For the mouth, when I extrude this out, so review that process, it's going to create inside polygons there. So when I do this, there's going to be an inside polygon created. So I'm going to need to delete these out. So let's see. Let's not pull that out as much. Let's fix the shape before we move on. Be that big. Not a bad start. Let's just make sure we flatten that out. And this is going to be much smaller because we do want it to be not large. Okay, so definitely needs to come down. This is going to be the same idea. We're going to scale it in. But we just got to be careful with that center line because then that center line is now out of focus, which we'll come back and fix later. That's okay. So it's not aligned anymore. So I will either need to go through here, or I can go back when I get finished, because the mouth was a little wonky shaped as well, and fix some of that area also. Perspective view. Okay, so let's continue to extrude this. Maybe I can go from the side view so I can see this. It is a little off, but this will be at the top of the head, so I think this will be a better position than what my concept was showing there. So let's continue to scale that in. So maybe this one is going to be where the bulbous area is going to be coming back out. That is going to be much larger than the ears. I can always scale this up and down later when I get done. This is going to be really small on the end, just to give a nice kind of round shape. Okay, so this is definitely half, and it's not going to be mirrored correctly, if you see. So I'm going to need to go back and adjust some of these polygons. First off, what I need to do is delete all these polygons in the middle. Do that a little bit. Because I don't want these to be inside polygons when it tries to loop them together. Oops, on the outside selected. Okay, so that'll help, but then they're still kind of offset. So what I really need to do is just move them back together. So we can even go maybe from a front view. I did pretty good up until this extrusion, so let's just try to move them. Just make sure we have everything. Still missing some. So it's not too bad. So go around and maybe fix some of these. There is a planar aligning that we can do here. So let's just try to manually do this, and then we'll come back and kind of fix everything as a whole. A weird inside bevel, so we don't want that to happen. We can always round this off a little bit better as we get to finalizing this. Again, the camera just gets kind of wonky from time to time. And push it back together. Move that out. Should be a good start. Okay, but that's still not completely perfectly lined up, so when we use the symmetry tool and collapse this back down, we're going to have some gaps. So now that the major parts of the body are finished, what we can do is just make sure that center line is back lined up. What I can do, I do need to delete the symmetry modifier and then just reapply this here in a minute. What I can do is use the border tool. What I'm going to do is select the outer edge. Let's just select the entire center line there, all the way up to this bulbous shape mouth and everything that we've done there as well. So what I can do is figure out what axis is perpendicular to my character, which would be the x-axis. I can see that down here. And what I can do is roll down to the Make Planar and just click Make Planar X. And that should make everything planar on this line. It might not make a huge adjustment, but it does make everything planar. Now I can go back and apply the symmetry modifier now, but my center pivot point might be off just a little bit. And the symmetry modifier works based off of that pivot point. So what we want to make sure we do is go to Effect Pivot Only, and then let's use the 3D Snap tool. Let's right click on that and make sure Pivot and Vertex is turned on. And then now, I just want to make sure this is snapped to one of the vertices on that center line. It doesn't really matter which one, it just needs to be on that center line. So that's just 3D snap. with the pivot and vertex, and then make sure it snaps. Just click until it snaps. Okay, so now always apply modifiers when you're in object mode. I want to apply one in sub-object mode, so the edit apply must be gray. And then let's roll back and find that symmetry modifier again. Now everything should be exactly lined up. Let's turn on my 3D snap for a second. There shouldn't be any overlap in areas anymore. It should fix everything because we've aligned everything correctly. And the bulb shape is set there correctly, so we're good to go. Let's go back down here and let's go just play around with this antenna-like shape on his head. So maybe let's try to scale these out just a little more. Something like that. Need to continue playing with it. You don't want to select the middle shape though. Do that because it'll make the hole again, so it's not what we want. But I can continue to play with this shape a little bit. Make sure that center line isn't selected. To get the exact shape that I want to, but at least that's a good start to move on to the next step. Everything is blocked out. There's still a lot of detail I can add. We come back in here. With Swift Loop and add more loops down here where the chest muscles will be. You can go in and kind of relax some of these as well. Let's do like this whole midsection here. Do the back section here. And let's go to relax. Kind of we'll just smooth everything over a little bit better. So I can do that with several areas, but overall it's at least a good start to blocking out the body form. Now I can add detail like the muscles. One last little thing is that what I can do is add the definition between the clothing and the skin. So then we'll talk about smoothing groups and getting ready to texture this character. Okay, so this character has kind of this big onesie-like suit. It has the clothing all the way up to the neck and then all the way to the appendages where the hands and the feet are. So one easy way to do this is actually to come in here with that loop tool, edit Swift Loop, and then just add another 1 or 2 loops. Just add 2 really close. And let's go in, let's select the middle one, and let's scale this one out just a little bit. I want to be careful really not to select that center vertex. Let's scale it out just a little bit, a whole lot. The main idea is so that this looks like it's kind of a piece of clothing that's kind of sticking out. Okay, so let's select the loop inside of that. Let's see if we can just move that inside. So most of the areas will look pretty nice. Just drag that in. It'll look like the skin is actually come around underneath that. So you may have to go in and manually move some vertices. So the idea is that from most angles it'll look like it's skin underneath the clothing. This part needs to be moved back. Just make sure that's pretty good. Okay, so with the wireframe turned off, you'll be able to see what looks like clothing. And we'll have to go back and adjust the smoothing groups here in a minute. Let's go ahead and do that same thing for all the rest of the body parts here. So Swift Loop, and we'll add 3. Let's do the loop around here. We can scale this one in just a little bit, and then move that up inside of the geometry. So you can do it as far as you need to, according to whatever angles that you're looking for. So let's select that. Let's scale that in just a little bit to ease that angle. So there's still some rounding off I can do with the hands. Okay, let's go do that for the legs. Same idea. Loop. It's going to be kind of above the bend. Maybe the outer one is out just a little bit. The next one down, we just move that up and then inside the geometry. make sure there's no weird overlapping stuff. Then maybe we ease this one just a little bit. Okay, so again, back legs. 2, 3. Leg. So maybe this one is scaled out just a little. And this one's moved up. Make sure everything's in there, and then this one is closer to it. Scaled in just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that'll look like the carry out's clothing without actually having the model clothing on top of the skin. Just kind of saves the amount of modeling time we have to do. Okay, so now let's take a look at it without the wireframe on. So we have a lot of issues with smoothing groups. Things look very hard edge, whereas we can go in and smooth things out. So a good way to do this is actually to go back to the edit poly and go to polygon mode, and then here's where you can roll down to the bottom and be able to see smoothing groups. Now you can do this as you're modeling. You could also do this at the end, so it's really just kind of preference there. So what I'm going to do is, we have a lot of different smoothing groups on everything. So if you drag select everything, we have 5 different smoothing groups. Now there's 32 different options, so we literally don't need to use all of them. You can probably still stick within the first 5, and that's a good kind of goal to do. Don't use as many as possible. We use as little as possible, because it is saving out different information or more information. So we're trying to reduce the amount of polygons that we actually do need. So, or information. So we have a low amount of polygons that will work well in the game, and there's many more we can add to get more smoothness around the arms or other areas in the face. We also want to save on the data with the smoothing groups, which make things look like it has more geometry there than what it really does. First step I usually do is just drag select everything, make sure all the polygons are selected, and clear all the current smoothing groups. And that will make it very faceted looking for everything, but that way we can start from fresh. So let's go back into polygon, make sure everything's selected, and instead of repeat last by accident, let's go down to the smoothing groups down here. So clear all smoothing groups and then apply one smoothing group to the entire thing. That'll work for just about most of the body, but there's some small areas where you'll see shading issues. So like right here, there's a shading issue where that hard corner is, around the neck, around the mouth, around the eyes as well. So any areas that have more than a 30-40 degree angle should have a different smoothing group to them. So what we're going to do, let's start with the hand for example, is let's drag select all the polygons for the hand. Let's click row a couple times, all the way until the inside loop there. We're also going to do it one more time. So grab that. So the outside, this area up here is going to be smoothing group 1, and then we're going to switch between 2 different smoothing groups for the hand. So since this is a 34 degree angle, we're going to change this to smoothing group 2. So how we do that is turn off smoothing group 1 and then add smoothing group 2. Don't ever add more than one smoothing group to a selection. You can, but it's just not the better method. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, let's roll this out for a second, is let's go shrink one time. So that gets off of that inside sleeve and back onto the skin, and I can actually, instead of using smoothing group 3, since these polygons will never touch the ones for the sleeve because of that extra ring of polygons around there, I can turn off smoothing group 1 and reapply smoothing group 2. Here's really where we can save on the amount of polygons, so that does adjust that smoothing issue that we had there. So let's move down to the legs, and then we'll go back up to the head area. So we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to select these polygons, make sure we have the full loop, and then we're going to choose grow. We do that twice so it gets that inside loop right there. So grow one more time, so you can see that shading issue, and this will render out the same. Turn off smoothing group 1, turn on smoothing group 2, and then we're going to shrink one time to get off of that inside skin loop, or inside clothing loop. Turn off smoothing group 2, turn back on smoothing group 1. Now you see that smoothing issue's gone away. Back legs, same process. You can drastically see a smoothing problem there. Okay, the same thing. We're going to hit grow twice. Turn off smoothing group 1, turn on smoothing group 2, shrink, and then we're going to do the opposite. Turn off smoothing group 2, turn on smoothing group 1. And now the smoothing issue's gone. Okay, so we have the same issue up here for the head. So the entire head needs to be one smoothing group compared to the clothing. So let's see if we do grow. Let's make sure we try to get that whole loop. Grow one more time. And exactly one more time as well to get that inside area. That's more than the 34 degree angle as well. Turn on smoother group 1, turn on smoother group 2. Let's do shrink one time, get just the skin. This is back to smoother group 1. So really I'm only going to need 2 smoother groups here. So basically if a polygon never touches another polygon, it's going to need, it can have the same smoother group. So the skin will actually have the same smoother group as the body, but that inside loop of the clothing has a smoother group too. Okay. So it fixes that issue around the neck area. What I do need to change is the smoother groups for inside the mouth, as well as inside the eyes. So let's select these. And let's click grow until we get to the outer edge. So that's too much. Let's go back to shrink 1. Turn on smoother group 1, turn on smoother group 2. So that should fix that area. Let's temporarily hide everything else, hide unselected. And let's go to the eye shape, grow until we get to the outer section. Too much. Let's go back to shrink. Turn on smoother group 1, turn on smoother group 2. So any other areas like the nostril would probably need more than, or the smoother group change as well. So let's go back. Let's do grow. Okay, so let's do that one. Let's turn on smoother group 1. Let's turn on smoother group 2. So you can see there's this shading issue right there. So that's what we're fixing. Smoother group 2. Then that should be good, other than maybe the inside. But I want that to be smooth in there. Now, since I have a kind of a smooth connection with the ears and antenna, that shouldn't be a big issue, because that is less than the angle that's looking for. Okay, so let's go right click and unhide all. Let's go make sure those eyes are set with smoother groups as well. Any other sub objects, like if you have teeth or tongue or whatnot, you need to go back and adjust that as well. Now this one, we can just have one smoother group for the entire eyeball. So let's do clear all and then make sure that same smoother group is turned on for there. So that should be pretty good for those eyes. So now we can rename this one left eye. And we can rename this one right eye. But there are instance copies. So same thing with teeth. If you have any instance copies with teeth, we can add that. So I'll add a couple other accessories like the teeth and the tongue to round out the model. But other than that, that's a pretty good start to modeling. Now we can move on to UV mapping and texturing this character. So that'll be it for this video. In the next video, we'll run into UV mapping.